Hey everyone, it's Reed. Before we get started today, I hope you will go and rate the Homefront 5 stars. I need your help in making sure that this community and this network will grow. Do what you can for me today. Like this podcast, rate it 5 stars, and help us make sure other people know about it. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to the Homefront. I'm your host, Reed Galen. Guys, today I'm coming to you solo. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to actually read something I wrote and posted over on Substack earlier this week. I'd like to tell you that I am technically proficient enough to put a little thing on the screen and let me read it, but I do not know how to do that, or at least not in any way that makes sense. So I'm just going to read it, and you can look at my shiny head or listen to my dulcet tones, and we'll go from there. So, guys, I watched all 71 minutes of Ezra Klein's interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and this came on the heels of their dueling op-eds last month in September when Klein extolled the now late Charlie Kirk for, quote, doing politics right, and Coates responded to Ezra asking if he'd lost his mind. And the conversation wasn't as surprising as it was illuminating. In just over an hour, Klein demonstrated why the liberal establishment's hold on the country, the economy, and the culture has failed. So to say that Klein is disconnected from America is to say that Neptune is far away from Earth. The concept is obvious, but the distance is breathtaking. His perch provides him with an audience of millions, a paycheck of millions more, and a perspective that is at least 3 astronomical units from the reality of everyday Americans. His life is like that old New Yorker cartoon where you see like 9th Avenue and then the rest of the world. Now, I give Coates credit. He has a worldview, a perspective, and a lived experience that provides more legitimate foundation for his role as a writer and a public intellectual. Klein, in this regard, is the anti-Coates. He holds his beliefs so lightly, they slip through his fingers like so many grains of sand. And like his New York Times stablemate, David Brooks, Klein finds his strength not in taking anything too seriously. Changing his mind doesn't make him a windsock for public opinion. Instead, he's credited with thoughtful reconsideration when the breeze freshens. If Fox News and Donald Trump provide their followers with daily dopamine rushes, he delivers serotonin on demand. His just dulcet enough tones deliver common sense and a desire for the return to comedy in culture. Klein provides a sense of safety, superiority, and contentment for his listeners. He asks nothing of them, and they love him for it. Coates does an excellent job as a foil to Klein due to the strength of his beliefs. Klein sees himself as a simple purveyor and a shaper of liberal technocratic political opinion, a kindly farmer come performative male. He expresses a desire for people to find meaning in his work. To what end? Coates again takes him to task for his remarks about Charlie Kirk, noting that at some point a thinker or an individual must, quote, draw a line. Now, Klein rejects this notion out of hand, and in the process, he yet again reveals himself. He says, quote, I don't get to draw the line. Well, of course he doesn't. To have a line will require a set of beliefs that are sacrosanct, personal tenets that transcend podcasts and politics and dictate how one sees the world, lives their life, and imparts their values to those around them. Klein, in this regard, is vaporware in human form. He asks nothing of his fans. He demands the world ask nothing of him, other than the acceptance that he belongs in the position in which he's found himself. It may be that Ezra lives in a gilded cage, wanting to offer more than he does, but hemmed in by the strictures of a neoliberal worldview that disallows any straying from orthodoxy. Now, at one point, Klein proclaims, quote, political strategy is downstream of political culture. Now, I'm not sure he knows what he's saying when he says that, but I assume he knows he's cribbing from Andrew Breitbart. Breitbart's exact quote was, quote, politics is downstream of culture. This small change in language represents a massive gulf in Klein's understanding of the world. Now, just last month, I was in Florida attending events with former Congressman David Jolly as he campaigns for governor of Florida. One of our stops was a University of Florida tailgate as guests of the University of Florida College Democrats. Their tent, and many others, were set up across the street from Fraternity Row. As kids streamed in and out of the SIGAP house, I asked one of our hosts where the Greek system stood on politics. His answer stuck with me. Quote, they're apolitical, but they're pro-Trump. Voter turnout among Florida's Panhellenic crowd is probably pretty low, but they're not Trump fans because of policy, but because of his FU attitude, his transgressive nature, and the anti-woke bombast with which he, in their eyes, affirms the frat bros' worst jokes. Klein cannot see this because he cannot separate culture from politics. To live in Ezra's Manhattan is to exist in a New Yorker cartoon. For him, a Southern college football tailgate might as well be a bazaar in Turkey. He wouldn't understand the culture or the language in either. Perhaps this is Klein's biggest miss. The people he wants to win back aren't looking for candidates with conservative social stances. They're looking for recognition. A recent Puck article stated that Ezra Klein has, quote, become something of a spiritual advisor to the Democratic Party. Truer words have rarely been written, as is clear from the party's generalized incompetence and the ability to perform even the most basic political tasks. In the wake of his latest book, Abundance, he was invited to speak to the Senate Democratic Caucus. During his interview with Coates, Klein relishes the idea that he can sit at the table and game plan politics with his allies and benefactors. The reality is closer to play acting. His self-confidence reminds me of Brian Cox's wonderfully cynical character in The Bourne Supremacy. Quote, "You talk about this stuff like you read it in a book." Now, I have read historian B.H. Littlehart's seminal work, Strategy. I have also read The Art of War. Neither of them qualifies me to take command of a field army and maneuver thousands of soldiers in combat. Klein suffers from no such lack of self-awareness. He's leaning over the sand table, moving tank battalions and infantry regiments. Now, if you spend a little time reviewing the work of the Democratic chattering class, you'll see why they and their candidates have lost credibility with the public. Rich and out of touch, their hard push toward YIMBYism once again leaves out those who've contributed to our economic woes untouched. While noting that the Democratic Party has hemorrhaged support, he suggests that Democrats should run pro-life candidates in conservative states such as Arkansas and Missouri. Coates notes that left-of-center issues like abortion and minimum wage have passed via ballot measure in these same places. What Klein cannot comprehend is that Democrats didn't lose those states because of abortion, but because as a party, their candidates and leaders refused to talk about anything that affected the voters' day-to-day lives. At no point does it occur to Klein that perhaps the rise of Trumpism isn't due to the radical, nativist, nationalist, racist right. It certainly has a place, and a big one. American politics doesn't operate in a vacuum. To absolve the Democratic Party of any responsibility for its current miserable state of affairs is to give a pass to those that have guided its policy, candidates, and campaigns for the past 30 years. Hemmed in by what he sees as an ugly aesthetic, Klein wants to win because he believes he and his cohort are smarter and better. Coincidentally, that belief seems to be the animating factor of many Democratic leaders I've met over the last 5 years. Now, actual Americans' welfare makes only a fleeting appearance in this conversation, and only then when introduced by Coates or as a campaign tactic. Klein doesn't claim to represent them because he doesn't, and his only connection to them, that is the voters, is, quote, reading focus group reports, survey data, and talking to the people that do that kind of work. His perspective reminds me of many national reporters going to Iowa for the first time as caucus season is kicking off. They treat going to the Midwest as an anthropological experiment, shocked to find that Iowans don't walk around with pork chops in their pockets and serve deep-fried Oreos with every meal. Klein muses that who he is willing to accept as political leaders has shrunk. Who he's willing to accept. Why do political leaders have to be acceptable to him? Because he continues, quote, I'd like to ask if he believes those that aren't public intellectuals have the right to criticize their leaders, or is that just the preserve of the well-heeled? Ezra Klein isn't the spirit of the elite left. He is its avatar. And while Klein professes little love for ideologues of any stripe, he ignores the glacial extremism he himself is a part of. The establishment left, liberals, etc., are locked into an environment no longer of their making. Unable to transform to present circumstances, the coalition slowly shrinks and occasionally calves off huge icebergs of support, incapable of fusing the lost appendage with the host. The host shrinks steadily and becomes more susceptible to outside forces, worse off for it. Once the Democratic establishment abandoned organized labor, their reason for being steadily shrunk. Featuring little to no political difference on economics, the Liberal Party was left with mostly social and cultural issues that fitted in well with the, quote, fiscally responsible, socially liberal mindset of smart America. This unwillingness to evolve is an extremism of a different sort. Not fire-breathing, perhaps, but unmoving and immovable just the same. Now, neither Klein nor Coates believes America is on the precipice of another civil war. After the predicate decrying of political violence, their consensus appeared to be that our current state, while ugly and unpleasant, is a passing era. If so, why is the Democratic Party animated by little else other than, quote, the opposition to Donald Trump? They're firmly in the grip of Carvelism. Wait for the other side to be bad enough that voters, stuck in a system they hate, will pull the lever for your side instead. Now, you either believe Donald Trump is an existential threat to the republic or you don't. If you do, you'd act accordingly. If you don't, you'd act as many Democrats do, using Trump as the boogeyman for everyone's problems, and he has indeed created plenty, in place of coming up with new or even recycled ideas that voters can judge. I don't believe we're headed for a North-South civil war either. However, I do believe every day we don't present a forceful alternative to what MAGA is selling is a day closer to the Trump era becoming the Trump order. The wealthiest Americans will be fine. Those well below the line long ago adapted to survival mode. It will be the shrinking middle that will suffer the biggest shock in this new world. They don't want Democrats either, by the way. Now, the greatest distance between Coates and Klein appears when it comes to the art and practice of politics. As noted above, Coates has a well-defined belief system that he believes is crucial to bringing about political and societal change. Alternatively, Klein is much more of the triangulation school. Politics is only about power. Now, in this case, they're both right. Power without belief in the greater good gets you Trumpism. Belief without power is impotent. Until and unless an alternative to the Republican Party can first convince Americans to join up to something bigger than themselves, electoral success will continue to be an incidental, lucky, or as a result of being only one of two market entrants. Wanting to be in power for its own sake isn't a good enough reason for voters to pull the lever. Voters are not obligated to do anything for anyone. That's their right, and too many of them, especially democratically aligned electors, choose the couch over the polling place. To give Democrats power again simply because they want it has led to too few positive outcomes for working and middle-class Americans. Their absence is going to kill this great experiment we call America. Now, Coates asked Klein what he'd like to do, and his response illustrates all. He'd like to, quote, be curiously pursuing interests in political peacetime. I'm in the business of political persuasion. We failed in a really consequential way. If you've read a statement more born of a privilege of a world that works for Ezra Klein, both literally and figuratively, please send it my way. Individual Americans don't have the luxury of pursuing their interests in political peacetime or any other time, for that matter. The country is screaming for change. The country is demanding a new direction and a new social contract and a new operating system. For Klein, these shouts are drowned out by the sirens of New York City and the huzzas of his adoring audiences. His voice could reach those Americans living paycheck to paycheck, but that would require a lot more work and self-reflection. We don't have time for Ezra to do either of those things, and the world won't wait. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me, for tuning in for a few minutes with me today and letting me talk to you. Please go to Substack, Twitter, says.us, at TikTok, at Reed Galen, on Threads and Instagram, at Reed_Galen USA. And as I said at the top, please rate this podcast 5 stars and make sure other people can hear it. Until then, please be safe, please be healthy, please be happy, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.